Hi, good evening, and welcome to another edition of Straight Up. It's Monday, the 15th day of February. I'm your host, Claudius Francis. We'll be together until 10 o'clock and have a very, very special guest tonight. Might educate me some, but we'll wait for that a little later. Remember, we are live on HGS Cable 116 television. We are also live on our Facebook page, HGS St. Lucia Official. We are live on the YouTube page. We are live on the HTS mobile app. And of course, we are streaming live as well. So welcome again, and hope you had a great weekend. In fact, we had this running joke yesterday. It was Valentine's Day, and the best gift you could have given to your significant other was a vaccine, right? But we don't have it yet. So couldn't give it. Anyway, so can I get my birthday little... Oh, there we go. Right, belated birthday greetings to my good old buddy, Charles Yearwood. Charlie, I had no idea. Well, I forgot it was your birthday yesterday, so I hope you had a great day coming from your son, Casey. Is that my godson? Yeah, something like that. Right. So I hope you had a great day yesterday, Charlie. Today, it's the birthday of twins, Ty and Tarek Plummer. I did give the mother a shout this morning to say hi to them. It's also the birthday of Fiona Charlemagne and Peter Edmonds. Tomorrow is the birthday of one of my favorite police officers, Sergeant Julia Sandrina Joseph from your huzzy, common law huzzy, your children, your grandchild, your mom, your brothers, your brother and your sisters, and the entire Royal St. Lucia Police Force. Hope you had a great day yesterday, Jude. Charlene Williams, it's your birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday in advance from your mom and dad, your brothers, your sisters, your nephews, nieces. Elizabeth Lewis. I'm not even sure if you're in St. Lucia or in Trinidad and Tobago, but happy birthday to you from your husband, Louis, your daughter, and the rest of the family. Our council over in Martinique, Joanne Sultan, it's her birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday to you, Joe, and wish you all the very best from your children, your mom, and the rest of the family. On Wednesday, it's the birthday of Hermina Parami. Happy birthday, Hermina, from Linda, your husband, and the rest of the family. And I couldn't wait to say this one. My biological mom passed away 3 years and 2 months ago. But another mother has always been there for me, continues to be there for me, and I have absolutely the greatest pleasure in wishing her advance birthday greetings. Let me say happy birthday in advance to Mrs. Esme Fletcher from your son Jimmy, your daughter-in-law Chital, the rest of your family over in Swazelle and in Castries, from me and the boys, you know, the usual Christmas gang. So we wish you long life, Mrs. F. I'm betting on you to score the century. So you take care of yourself until I see you. Mara Maslan, it's your birthday on Wednesday as well. Happy birthday to you. On Thursday, somebody who was in the news almost every day, more so because of COVID. So let me wish my dear friend Joreen Georges happy birthday in advance. She celebrates her birthday on Thursday, as does Joan Hippolyte over in Soufrière. So happy birthday to all of you celebrating today, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. Right. So you see the red tie, right? Not accidental. I'm supporting my house, my counterpart house in St. Joseph's Convent, and I understand tomorrow I'll be doing the endorsement video. But I did try to get, I was telling Kalila, I did place a call to President Biden, but he was a little busy with the impeachment process over the weekend. And my grand uncle, Pope Francis, he agreed the problem was during the week he only wears white. So he couldn't put on the red cassock to come and properly endorse. It wouldn't look good for him to be in white endorsing the Red House. So working on that still. Okay, so blessed hand, we get in there. Right. As you know, Dominica received the vaccines yesterday, the Astra vaccine, which is getting blows all over the world now. It's amazing. There is hardly a European country which is using the AstraZeneca vaccine. Germany has stopped it. Switzerland has stopped it. Australia has stopped it. Well, Australia is not Europe, but the majority of the European countries have ceased using the AstraZeneca vaccine. Both the CDC and the WHO continues to give the vaccine the seal of approval. Now, this is the vaccine the Caribbean has received. Dominica and Barbados, and Dominica and Barbados gave some of theirs to St. Lucia, I think 3,000 doses. We're getting them from, these came from India. There seems to be, as far as the Europeans are concerned, some problems with the efficacy of that vaccine. But it's what we have. I'll go with the WHO and the CDC will continue to say it's good and want to urge everyone to take the vaccine. Over in Barbados, where the vaccine is already being given out, there's a huge debate going on with Peter Wickham over the weekend on his radio show. Apparently, the Rastafarian movement in Barbados has indicated that they will not be taking the vaccine. And on his show on Friday, Peter Wickham suggested, or at least that's the interpretation of the Rastafarian movement, that he said, if they are not going to take the vaccine, then they should stay in the hills. He is saying that's not what he said. And they are saying that's what he said. That's what he meant. So the debate is raging because neither the WHO nor the CDC can say for a fact whether the vaccines prevent the disease in all cases. And in the cases where it has been proven the vaccine can either stop or eradicate the disease, there is no medical evidence that someone who is vaccinated can't still pass on the COVID to another person. The science is not yet clear on that. So there's that big debate in Barbados over Peter Wickham's statements. And speaking of the vaccines, Dominica aims to be, by the 22nd of April, the first country in the world to vaccinate 50% of its population. That's how organized Dominica is. They got a vaccine last week. They're beginning to put it in arms as early as this week. because they'd already planned the rollout even before they got the vaccine. The figures are remarkable. So they aim, as I say, to become on the 22nd, or by the 22nd of April, the first country, not in the OECS, not in the Caribbean, not in the Western Hemisphere, the first country in the world to vaccinate 50+% of its population. As of today, America is only at 12%. And they have already given, is it 50 million doses? Because ever since Biden came into office, they have been averaging 1.6 million a day. So they're close to 50 now. 50 million is only what? About 1/7 of the population. But it's 2 doses we are talking about. So they have some way to go. And over in Barbados, unfortunately, they have recorded their first death of a medical worker. So you see what the dangers are, even to our frontliners who are trying to ensure that we are safe, and in the process, they put themselves at risk. And today, or was it over the weekend, Barbados recorded its first healthcare death. Quite remarkable. Well, let's say I want to give my guests as much time as possible, so today my preamble is going to be pretty short. I just want to touch on briefly the madness on our roads. And I'm sure the majority of you saw the videos, one on the Millennium Highway where a vehicle had overturned. The occupant appeared to be severely injured, but looks can be deceiving, but from the photographs, from the video, he appeared to be severely injured. I haven't heard anything further about that. I spoke with somebody who was actually coming from Viewfort, and I assumed the video was like 7 o'clock in the evening. He said no, it was closer to 10 p.m. when he passed, and the accident had not long before occurred. Then there was this other one with this crazy, absolutely crazy driving, overtaking everything in sight, wrong the bends at high speed, almost making contact with an omnibus. Crazy. Then another with somebody in the middle of the road, based on what was being said in the video, come into contact with another vehicle and a wall, at first attempting to reverse the vehicle and get away, and then completely abandoning the vehicle after that and just running away. It's just crazy out there, and we must do better than that. We must do better than that. And it begs the question as well, if this curfew is at 7 o'clock, or begins at 7, why was this vehicle out at 10? We must take our protocols seriously, and the protocols involve whatever else our personal views are about it. It involves a curfew. Curfew is 7 o'clock. People who wish to be out after 7 get special dispensation. But other than that, we should be at home. So I want to urge everybody to follow the protocols. Keep the curfew. Stay at home. There's nowhere to go, really. So why are we even out? Everywhere else is shut. So having said that, let's take our first commercial break. And when we come back, I'll introduce my guest, who's going to get 15 more minutes than any other guest has ever gotten on this show. Back in a moment. Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. And let me just say happy birthday belated birthday greetings to Marie Valentine Wallace, who celebrated yesterday, from her children, especially Marianne and grandchildren and in-laws. But if I tell you the amount of mape we are getting on Facebook there about they didn't like my tie because it's supporting Blessed Hands, and Trevor Donnelly interfered with me, tell me I was in Lapo Rodney, the house that won the most trophies, all sorts of things I'm getting there. I've just been advised, though, that Barbados has extended the lockdown for a further 2 weeks because of the continued rise in COVID, something we need to follow up on. Right. My guest tonight is the recently installed principal of the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, Dr. Keith Nurse. Doc, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, before we got on air, I was asking Doc about his origins, and you hear Nurse, and you think Barbados. Well, think again. So, Doc, tell us a little about you.
Well, as I was indicating, we migrated from Barbados in the 1880s. So the family's Trinidadian, and I was born in the UK, grew up in Trinidad and Tobago. But I've lived in many locations, studied in Canada, I've worked in the UK, in Switzerland, in France, Paris recently. I've traveled quite a bit.
You've been around.
I've been around.
Almost as ubiquitous as COVID, but that's about an average.
Yeah.
Prior to this assignment, where were you?
I was in Paris at the OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. I was doing a short stint as an economic advisor and head for their Structural Transformation and Innovation Unit.
So your doctorate is in economics?
No, my doctorate is in international relations, with a focus on international economic relations, of course.
Okay.
But a lot of the work that I do is on what we call innovation economics, where the focus is on how do we transform economies and so forth.
You taught prior to this stint?
Oh, yeah. I worked for a long time at the University of West Indies.
In Trinidad or Cave Hill?
In Trinidad, in Cave Hill, in Jamaica. And I say I've been all over the place. I've been all over the place.
Yeah.
So I started off in Trinidad and Tobago in the Department of Government, and then I moved over to the Institute of International Relations, where I was for a long time, which is where that's my alma mater. That's where I got my PhD. Then I moved to Barbados, where I was the director for the Sri Ramphal Center for International Trade. And then I was in Jamaica for 2.5, almost 3 years, as the executive director for UWI Consulting, Inc., so the university's consulting company.
Now, ordinarily, on this particular Monday, nobody would have been able to see you ordinarily. And it's only because of COVID that you were actually on the show, because today, as you know better than I do, would have been Carnival Monday in Trinidad. So, miss it?
But of course. It's scripted into my DNA. Yeah. Like any other Trinidadian and Tobagonian, we are all pining for Carnival. Well, those of us who are carnivalists. So yeah, I'm a carnivalist. True, tried and tested. Not only do I play mass, I actually write about it as well. I'm probably the person who's written more about the economics of Carnival in Trinidad and festivals in the region than anyone else, bar none. This is one of my areas of expertise. So every year, around this time, I get a call from some journalists in Trinidad asking me about the economics of Trinidad and Tobago Carnival. And so said, so done. So there's an article in the Business Guardian last week about the economics, and I'm quoted extensively.
Which they're going to miss this year.
Yes. But we have a lot of stuff going on online. So, yeah.
Because I saw Farmer Nappy won the, is it the Groovy?
Soca Monarch.
Soca Monarch.
Yeah.
You've combined it now.
Yes.
The Soca Monarch virtually. And today, several top executives, including the mayor of San Fernando, actually went to work dressed in carnival regalia because it's Carnival Monday.
Yeah.
But let me ask you, Dr. Nurse, you were at the OECD in Paris prior to this assignment, and you found out about it how?
About what?
This job in St. Lucia.
How did I find out about this job?
Yeah.
Well, I was encouraged to apply. You know how the thing goes out. There's email, or WhatsApp, and in fact, I think I was interviewed for the job while I was in the Miami airport, if I recall correctly. I was en route to Paris, and I was in the lounge at the Miami airport, and that's where I was interviewed.
But had you ever resided in St. Lucia prior to this?
No.
Just passing through every now and then?
I've done a lot of work on St. Lucia, you know. I've written a book on the trade and economics of the banana industry. So I've been to several of the banana estates, interviewed lots of people in the banana industry. I've written on St. Lucia Jazz Festival and the music industry and a few other areas. Yeah, so I've probably been to St. Lucia prior to living here 30, 35 times or more. I've vacationed here with my family in St. Lucia. So yeah, it's countless times.
But having been at campuses like St. Augustine, Caville, Mona, where there are thousands and thousands of people, I mean, how is it? What's the difference now coming down to just maybe just over 1,000, 1,500?
About 2,000.
About 2,000.
Yeah.
I mean, is it different? Is it challenging? Is it what you expected?
Yes, of course. I'm no stranger to the community college even before arriving. I can't remember which year, but I gave the Sartor Lewis Memorial Lecture one year. That must have been that's more than 10 years ago. And prior to that, I had visited the college at least twice, I think, prior to that. So I wasn't, a strange concept to me, the college. But there are lots of community colleges and colleges of this size all across the region, of which I'm quite familiar. The College of Bahamas, which is moving towards a university, moved already to a university, in Grenada, you name it, the Antigua. I've visited most of them.
Okay, so what is your vision for the college? Every principal comes with his or her own vision. What is yours?
Well, it's more like a mandate. My mandate is to upgrade the college to a university. And so that's the benchmark. And that's what I've been asked.
Within a specified period, or is it?
Well, this issue has been being debated for more than 20 years. Mm-hmm. So to put a time frame on it at this stage, it seems almost a bit ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But the goal is to do it now, not 5 years from now, not 10 years from now, to do it now.
Has COVID in any way affected the transitional period you're looking at?
If it's anything it has done, is accelerated it. And so in some respects, COVID is actually a blessing in disguise. Because whereas in the past, some of the vested interests or the perspectives harking for the good old days would have been the major barrier, in the context of COVID, everything has been upended. Mm-hmm. So there is no good old days to return to. COVID has changed education, and particularly tertiary education, in a fundamental way. In fact, all our economies are going to be transformed as a result of COVID. And so we have to think afresh and think anew. And that's what we're doing at the college.
Okay. You've been here how long now on the job?
Well, I started in November 2019. Yes, it seems like a strange. And mind you, I was traveling for quite a bit in the early phase because I had many other commitments. So I was basically on the ground, I would say, in February, and then by mid-March, COVID hit. And I went to see my family and got locked in Trinidad for 6 months. So I didn't return until
That's right,
September.
because Trinidad was allowing no one in, no one out.
Yes. I got out with the CPL players. But I had to actually enter their bubble. So I have done, all told now, about 5 rounds of quarantine. So I have this down to a science now.
Right now, you're not leaving.
No, well, and I've done so many PCR tests, it's like, it's a piece of cake.
Okay. How well prepared would you say our students are for virtual learning? Because that seems to be a problem at the lower level of the primary and secondary. How is it at the South?
Well, that's one of the things we did really early, was to do a survey of the students. So first of all, in terms of their access to the equipment and broadband and so on. And we were actually quite surprised. The 80+% of our students had either access to devices and or broadband to a relatively workable extent. So we were like, oh, wow, okay. It was a bit of a green light for us to start pushing. And then also for those students who were displaced as a result, to get devices. And so the ministry did supply us with some devices in the early phase to fill that gap. And what we've been doing since then is building the capacity of the students and the staff. Because now it's not just an issue of the students struggling to keep up with this online digital educational experience. You now also have the staff, because they have to provide the services. And they also have to be pushed up. But I think one of the advantages, and I don't know if St. Lucia is really appreciative of it, is that St. Lucia is the OECS country that attracted more training in digital education than anywhere else in the OECS, right? Up until that point. And so in some respects, we had some boots on the ground, some capacities, both at the college and outside of the college that we could jump on. And I think that has been our saving grace.
So you're satisfied with that? Well, let me rephrase that. What areas do you think we still need upgrading in?
Oh, there's a lot of work to be done. And in fact, we are moving in that direction. So we have recently received word that our proposal to train new media people and animators to produce content for digital education has just been awarded through the Caribbean Development Bank. It's not a huge amount of money, but it will start the process. So in an online environment, the mechanisms for learning are very different from the face-to-face. In some instances, it has its upside, and some instances, it has its downside. So what you have to do is to curate a process by which the learning becomes more interactive. It's more self-paced, and it's also allowing for a different kind of interaction, an interaction where the learners can produce content themselves. So they're not just passive learners. And so digital education has some strengths to it, but you have to develop the infrastructure, and you have to develop the capacities of the providers of the service, meaning the teachers, the lecturers. You also have to have administrators, content developers. There's a whole industry around digital education, which is where I think the college is starting to move and move very quickly.
Well, that is quite some achievement so far in a year that has largely been dominated by, well, your tenure has largely been dominated by COVID. So when do you expect face-to-face learning to return. I know there's a big debate in the United States now. In fact, the CDC is actually recommending face-to-face with certain caveats. What's our own situation?
Yeah. Well, here's my prediction, because very early we made a decision, we're going online and staying online. We're not going to be reverting back to some old normal. Those days are gone. So everything going forward is going to be hybrid. We are going to curate the face-to-face. The face-to-face will be deliberate, it will be focused, and it will be very strategic. So we currently are doing face-to-face, well, except for the curfew in the current context. Clinicals, labs, practicals, specific workshops, seminars, etc. Those are the things that are going to be face-to-face. And going forward, it won't be that we'll be having face-to-face just as a matter of course. It will be a blend of both online and face-to-face, where the face-to-face is superior as a learning methodology. In the old days, if I could call it that, we were very critical of the face-to-face, because what we know is this. Students learn about 35 to 40% of what they hear. They learn about 75, 80% of what they write, and 90% of what they teach. You notice what I'm saying? So, if we can get our students to become more teachers, meaning peer-to-peer learning, then the retention level is high. But just having a lecturer or a teacher in front of our classroom is not a very efficient way of learning. But we've known this for a very long time. But there's been strong resistance to moving away from that, because we have cadres of people who are dedicated to that mode of operation. That pedagogy has, in many respects, outlasted its usefulness. And COVID is really just the nail in the coffin. So going forward, the best approach is to have a blended hybrid system where you're maximizing on the best of both worlds, both the online world and the face-to-face world. So that's where the college is heading.
So it's your view that even when COVID is gone, which we hope is very soon.
Well, no. If you know the history of pandemics, COVID is not going away. COVID will be with us for a very long time, if not permanently.
It will be managed, because the same history...
Yes, we will be managing it. We'll be coexisting with COVID.
Yeah, because the same history you speak of ordinarily would speak to a vaccine of 10 years. We have actually accelerated that to months. So perhaps this one might be different.
Well, it's like cholera. Cholera swept through the Caribbean in the 19th century. There were 3 major waves with huge levels of death. So, for example, Barbados lost 20% of its population in the 1850s. Right? There's no country that's ever lost a higher level of percentage of its population as a result of a crisis, disaster, or anything. Not even the Haitian earthquake in 2010, it was, I think, had the same level of death as a share per capita. But what we've done is develop technologies and modes of operation to manage cholera, but cholera still exists. So similarly, these zoonotic diseases, these respiratory diseases, have been around for a long time. Spanish flu, Hong Kong flu, you name it. They've been around, and in recently, SARS, H1N1.
In fact, I was surprised to read over the weekend that Ebola had made a comeback in a big way in one of the African countries.
No, the expectations are that we'll be having more and more of these disease outbreaks going forward, and these pandemics. And so what do we do? Lurch from crisis to crisis, or do you put in place a mechanism to manage in the context of a crisis? And so we have two options. We could either go back to the old mode and hope for the best, or we could plan so that we are flexible and we could pivot depending on the circumstance. I'm for the latter.
For the latter. So let me rephrase. So you were saying, moving forward, when we become more in tune with what's happening, where we can go about not the state of normalcy we were in before, but at least some sort of normalcy, that we, notwithstanding, we shall not return to the 100% face-to-face.
Well, that's my recommendation. And I suspect that's something that every educational institution has to take into account. There are some significant benefits to digital education. Shall we put it in the dustbin, or shall we utilize it? And the answer is, well, yes, you should utilize the best possible tools at your disposal. Because any country that falls behind in digital education means that they are allowing their populations, and their young populations in particular, to now fall by the wayside, because the rest of the world is going to move on from here. You can't graduate from a college like our own and go to a university in North America, Europe, or Asia, not having a digital educational experience going forward. You will be required to learn in that environment. And it's not just school leavers anymore. It's people in the workplace, so lifelong learning. And, the huge advantage is this. We no longer have to rely purely on the domestic population for our catchment in digital education. Your field is now opened up. So currently at the college, we are working in collaboration with the Department for External Affairs. We have a virtual lecture series entitled Diplomacy and Sustainable Development, looking at the prospects for small island developing states in the contemporary arena. We have in excess of 100 participants from as far away as Taiwan. In fact, it's the Ambassador Laura, who's based in Taiwan, who is the architect of this lecture series. And so it's Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays at 9 a.m., which is 9 p.m. for Ambassador Laura.
Yes.
All right. And we have participants from all over the globe. And we have presenters from Fiji, from London, from Brussels, from Sri Lanka, and the list goes on. We have a wider pool that we can draw on as lecturers, facilitators. Digital education now allows for that. So you're no longer restricted purely to the human resources at your disposal in a geographical location. That's a huge advantage. Plus you have a bigger market. So no longer are you playing to the 2,000. You could now be doing 20,000 or possibly even 100,000 from a small jurisdiction. Because in many respects, nobody cares whether you're operating from a small place or a big place. What they're interested in is what is the quality? What is the quality of the experience that you have on offer? Is it competitive? Is it relevant? Is it targeted to their needs? And that's the way forward. And the potential is huge.
But it's funny, Dr. Nurse, that if we go back 25 years, when distance learning was what they referred to it as then, wasn't so popular, those who were in the face-to-face environment at UWE, at universities in the United States, the United Kingdom, actually referred to in many ways, in many instances, referred to the distance learning degrees as secondary and thirdly level degrees. They didn't regard it as being equal to the ones that they did being physically at the universities.
Yeah.
How times have changed.
Times have changed in a massive way. So you have lecturers or let's call them experts in an area now who are leaving the university where they're teaching 100, 200 students at a time, maybe 500, and going online with their programs and now have a target market of 20,000, right? Who are prepared to learn with this person because this is the best person on this topic, bar none anywhere else in the world. And so what is on sale is not the reputation of an institution anymore, at least going forward, but it's the quality of the content, the quality of the experience. Can you give me a leg up in the marketplace with your expertise? That's what matters. Huh? And so even legacy institutions are having to compete. Now, the Ivy League schools are probably going to be able to sustain their position. Tier 1 universities, let's say in the United States, I mean, who doesn't want to go to Harvard or Wharton or you name it?
MIT.
MIT. Yeah. Huh? The second tier and third tier colleges are already finding it very difficult because students are saying, well, why should I pay $20,000 or $30,000 per annum? This is US dollars. And I'm online. I'm not getting the experience because going to university is not just about being in a classroom. Tertiary education is not just about being in a classroom. It's about peer-to-peer learning. It's about meeting new friends. It's about exploring new vistas and so on and so forth. Right? So yes, there is a face-to-face component which is very difficult to replicate in an online environment. But what you do is you make sure strategically that you offer those opportunities. So you create clubs and experiences. You curate the face-to-face. You don't leave it to chance per se. You try to create that framework in which people can enjoy meeting each other and so forth. But nonetheless, what we're finding is that you also have a range of digital providers of content online, Coursera, edX, etc. And they have gone global. So in Trinidad, the government in Trinidad and Tobago was giving away Coursera, this is prior to COVID, free to the population. You want to sign up to do a course online? Sign up to Coursera. So traditional legacy universities in all parts of the world, if we stay in the old framework, Coursera, edX, and so on are going to come and eat our lunch because they will be able to offer an experience that may be of a higher quality and possibly even at a lower cost. So if you stay in steady state, you may actually be in reverse and losing your shirt as well.
I've just been told that the Coursera has been available to teachers here in St. Lucia. So, and you anticipate, because that has not always been the case, you anticipate being the hybrid of online and face-to-face, there's a cost saving for the student.
No, I didn't say that.
No, I'm asking, do you anticipate that?
A cost saving for students who are in St. Lucia?
In St. Lucia, well, in St. Lucia, the cost, if it costs $1,000 per semester to be 100% physically at the school, is it that there's going to be a reduced cost if there's a hybrid?
No, St. Lucia is a special case, right? The fees at the college, particularly for the associate degree,
subsidized.
Yes, it's subsidized, but it's very low. It's the second lowest in the region. It's only in Grenada where it's subsidized to a greater extent is it cheaper. But you cannot go and do an associate degree anywhere else in the world for what you pay at St. Louis Community College. All right? So St. Lucia has come to accept a very low fee for tertiary education. The question is, can you sustain that? Because the government basically funds 80% of that cost. If you move forward in a context where the government can no longer afford to provide us with a high level of subvention, then you enter another scenario where the purchasing power of the domestic population and the willingness to pay becomes an issue. But I've been doing my math and analysis. I do the numbers. I don't work on opinion. I don't work on opinion. You can't be trained as an economist and work on opinion. So, St. Lucia, among the OECS countries, is the country that spends the least as a share of its educational budget on tertiary. It's only 5%. The OECS average is 8%, and the average for Latin America and the Caribbean is 20%. So, the debate about keeping the fees as is, or that it's not politically possible to push the fees up, is something that St. Lucia as a country does at its peril. Because if you continue underinvesting in tertiary, it means then your society won't be able to compete.
But let me understand that, Dr. Nis. You're saying that we have the lowest fee range.
Second lowest.
Second lowest fee range because the government takes care of a large portion of it.
No, that is not what I'm saying.
So how is it that we have such a low? So who's paying for the difference?
So the fees structure, we have several fees at college. In fact, we probably have about 10 different fees. But the bulk of which are the associate degree fees. We have bachelor's degree fees where the fees cover close to 80% of the cost of the service that you get.
Okay, so the government is 20%.
So associate degrees are in the tune of about 20-25%. So in effect, those fees are the lowest, or it's the second lowest in the particularly.
So who
region.
pays the 80%? The government?
It's coming from the government subvention.
Right. So this
in effect,
right.
Because the government provides that subvention, and it's for us to distribute that subvention as we see fit.
So which is my other question. If they are providing as much as 80% for the associate at least, how is it that we are still the lowest investment in education?
Because if you look at it as a quantum of the total educational budget, it is 5%. So in other territories, countries are spending more. And there are other indicators, right? But, I don't want to go through all,
sure.
Right? So, and if the government subvention hasn't changed in more than 20 years. So inflation has eaten into it. So whereas the investment, and in fact, almost 30 years ago, the nominal amount that was spent on the college was higher. So progressively, the investments have been declining across political spectrum. So you now have a college where a lot of our buildings are not up to scratch, and they're historical buildings as well. So they require a lot of maintenance. And then you take into account the investment in the human resources. Now, a university is not buildings, it's people. Right? It's the quality of your people. So the college has 8% PhD staffing. For us to achieve university status, we need to probably double, if not triple, that amount. Because you need the quality. You need people who are publishing, you need people who are doing research, and so forth. And any country that wants to progress in the modern world, and this is not just today, it's for the last 20, 30 years, tertiary education and higher education is a growth industry of huge proportions. It's the mechanisms by which countries achieve their innovation potential. You cannot be an innovating nation with a small percentage of your population doing tertiary education. Or, like in the case of St. Lucia, where a large share of your tertiary educated students go abroad to study and don't come back. So if you look at the brain drain data for St. Lucia, it's close to 70% of the tertiary educated who have migrated. Right? In Trinidad and Tobago, it's about the same rate. Jamaica is a little bit higher, 80%. Guyana is 90%. English-speaking Caribbean countries have the highest brain drain rates.
Guyana will change.
Well, yeah, they're coming back for the oil. Coming back for the oil. But we'll see. So, Caribbean countries are hemorrhaging some of their best talent. And as a result, the economies are lagging behind. Caribbean countries are the slowest growth region in the world, even among small states. We have the highest debt overhang per capita, or in terms of trade to GDP ratios as well. And so COVID is just, hammering on our existing vulnerabilities. Caribbean countries have been too slow to adapt and innovate, and particularly in the OECS territories. In many respects, I think that we really need to, this is what COVID is teaching us, that we need to move and push on to start targeting new sectors in the economy, dynamizing things that are right at our fingertips. So for example, I was just sharing with a friend last night what I consider to be the potential of the CMOS industry here in St. Lucia. St. Lucia can become the CMOS capital of the Caribbean quite easily, and brand that. I always talk about the cassava bread. The best cassava bread in the world is to be found in St. Lucia. Except St. Lucians don't think so. Apiculture. And I could go down the list. The opportunities in the green and blue economy, digital economy, etc. Health economy, public health. And these are the areas that we are moving into at the college. So we've rebranded our agricultural program. It's no longer just the agricultural division. It's called Agri-Entrepreneurship and Climate Smart Agriculture. Our health sciences is now called Health, Wellness, and Human Performance. Our business program is Business Technology and Innovation. And the list goes on. We are dynamizing, we are reinventing the college as we proceed.
Now, Doc, you have me so fascinated with the treaties that you've given me now. I want to go into something that you were looking into having for the independence, and it's called the Gateways to Global Careers, in keeping with the 2021 theme for independence, a resilient nation we can. Tell me a little about that.
Okay. Now, I suppose it's like a paternity test. I have to take some responsibility. Yeah, this is one of my several ideas. We'll see how it does. But the idea is to shift the learning process away from the classroom by creating a dynamic framework where students or learners experience the world of entrepreneurship by doing. So we have a series of lectures and workshops outlined for them. And our coordinator, Brenson Catherine, has been able to attract some faculty from Harvard University,
Right.
from Arizona State University, which is the top school in the United States for innovation for the last 6 years. And it's a solution who we are collaborating with. So it's a solution diaspora that we're tapping into. And then we have other entrepreneurs from here in St. Lucia who are working on the green economy, blue economy, and so on, who will be providing some of the lectures and the workshops. And it's lectures on critical thinking, design thinking. How do you conceptualize a new possibility, a new product, a new service? How do you create intellectual property value capture, utilizing your technologies and your indigenous capabilities? On top of that, we'll put them through an incubator process, and we are working with Invest St. Lucia on this. So they're one of our partners. We are also putting them through a design competition, and we've recently been talking with some of the financial organizations to how do we, because you want to create a pipeline, but there must be something to pull that pipeline through a process. There must be a demand process. As I say, there must be a pot of gold at the end of the tunnel. So if you have a good idea, business idea, how can this be financed? How can you take it to the marketplace? Who are the partners to support that? Now, that's the gateways. The other exciting thing that we have that is just about to be launched is an innovation lab, which will ride alongside the Gateways program. So that the innovation lab is basically 3 sub-labs, a food tech lab, an environmental lab, and a media tech lab. And in each of the labs, some of which we've already received equipment from the National Foundation for Sustainable Development, if I recall correctly. The equipment was donated by the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund out of Jamaica. And we're working with AICA, which is the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation and Agriculture, for the food tech lab. So we're just about to finalize a MOU with them on this matter. And so on and so forth. And so now you have a lab which allows for the experimentation, for students to get their hands wet, dirty, working with the technologies, and having coaches, not just here in St. Lucia, but from wherever. I mean, Arizona State University has offered to design our innovation lab for us, free of course.
Right. Doc, let's take a final commercial break, but I have to tell you, St. Lucians, those of you who are viewing, if you happen to be driving along the roads, that's before curfew, right? Or during the non-curfew hours, which are 5 a.m. to 7 p.m., and you see a very tall, lanky guy on a bicycle, that's Dr. Liz. Make sure you don't bounce him down, right? So we take a break. When we come back, we'll open the lines, and I have a few more questions just before we open the line. Back in a moment. Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. My guest, Dr. Keith Nurse, the principal of the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. He's been there for about 14 months, but it seems like a lifetime because of those 14 months, 11 have possibly been COVID infected. So, right, before we open the lines, Doc, here's a question for you. You've given us the new names of the divisions. Are these just cosmetic names, or is there a change in the curriculum as well?
Yeah, that's what we've been doing, introducing new courses, new programs, and so on. Now remember, an associate degree is still very introductory. It's the first 2 years of university. So you're learning the basics. What we're trying to infuse, and it really relates to our new tagline, it's sustainability, innovation, and entrepreneurship. So if you, I notice our new sign is up on the wall down the road.
Yes, I saw that today.
Yes, it looks lovely. Thanks to my colleagues in the property department. Sustainability, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Now, the college, its strength is in technical and technological areas. And that's what we are attempting to boost. That's why the Innovation Lab is so important, because it helps to catapult, I think, what are our strengths and capabilities. And same for gateways. In fact, we're getting so much demand from outside of the college that we are being encouraged to open up gateways to our past students and even young entrepreneurs who want a leg up in the marketplace. And so that's what we're doing. So the demand, we are going to respond to the demand. So what we are doing as well is introducing some new bachelor's degrees for the new academic year come September. One in business, one in tourism, which have been in the works for a long time, almost more than 10 years now. So we're just implementing now. Public health, which we scripted last year, and so it's ready for running. And you can imagine, in the context of COVID, public health is a new growth area. Sustainability and environmental sciences. And we're hoping, and this is my big hope, to push through one on digital entrepreneurship, digital media, and so on. That's a huge growth area, of course, as you can well imagine. These are game changers because for several reasons. One, it means that students can now finish a BA here right at home at a cost that is significantly cheaper than going anywhere else. Now, the BA fees are not going to be like the AD fees, right? Because our bachelor's degree fees are a little bit higher. They get closer to the 80% of the cost of offering the degree.
But a lot of the cost in those degrees to St. Lucians is actually housing, and which you're not going to have to pay if you're staying home.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you went abroad.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you went abroad, a significant portion of your fee, of your cost, would be in housing, transportation, etc.
Oh, yeah.
If you're going to that bachelor's degree right here, the bulk of your cost would largely be to Sir Arthur,
yes,
and not the peripheral other aspects of it.
Correct. So it's a major foreign exchange savings for the country as a whole, because the cost of doing tertiary education abroad is quite expensive. In the United States, from a tier 3 up university, you're talking about $20,000 US to as much as $30,000. In Canada, it's a little cheaper. In Europe, you can get, depending on your status or citizenship, you get something a little cheaper, but in the UK, it's quite expensive as well. So the options are not as competitive as what we will have on offer. But we want to compete not just on price. We want to compete on offering cutting-edge, future-proof degrees. Degrees that will last the test of time, that will put you in a competitive position relative to anybody, anywhere else. And so that's our ambition. To achieve that, we do need to upgrade our staffing. We need additional staff, particularly in some of the new growth areas. One of the areas that I've been asking my colleagues to jump in on is data sciences and data analytics. We are in the fourth industrial revolution. And so if we are not training people in this area, then we will be left behind. So everything from data visualization to AI and so on are requirements now in ordinary businesses. This is no longer just a high-tech scenario. Whether you're talking about an insurance company or banking, telecommunications, all of these technologies are being employed now. And so we need to move far more rapidly. And I think that the college has an opportunity to move in this direction. And our biggest asset is the name of the college. It's named after the most well-known economist possibly on the planet. He can be found in every university's library. You cannot do a degree in economics and not read Atlas. It doesn't matter where. I have colleagues and friends from China, South Korea, India, South Africa, Argentina, right? I have colleagues all over the world. They have all read Atlas. They all not just read the work, they worship the work,
yeah.
right? He is a pioneer in so many respects because his career spanned different areas. So he can be described as three types of economists rolled into one. He started off in business economics and then moved into economic history and then development economics. So he charted new vistas in each of these areas. So he's really hard to beat.
Indeed. Well, let me at this point in time open the lines, Dr. Nurse, 4522693. From Canada, there was a discussion here in Toronto about whether or not university will be cheaper in response to my question to you. Now that students are online, the answer was not immediately or for the foreseeable future because it costs a lot to buy all the equipment needed, hire the technical experts needed, pay for the dedicated bandwidth needed, host all that data, hire the quality professors, and the help they need. Moving courses online is not cheap, so tuition prices may stay where they are for a while, which is exactly more or less what you said.
And maybe if I could just jump on that quickly because
Sure.
I think this tends to be a bit of a misunderstanding. The amount of work you have to put into designing a course in an online or digital environment is possibly 5 times more work. It is that it's preloaded, it's front-loaded. So by the time you come online to see a course or participate in a course, the lecturer and with support staff now, right? So you can no longer produce a course by yourself. You have to have content designers and other people working behind the scenes.
Just hold that thought up. We have a call. I just want to say that during the lockdown, I was at home for 7 days. I worked harder than when I was at the office. Hi, good night. You're on. Thanks for calling.
Good night. Good night. Claudius?
Sir, let me introduce you to the principal. This is the...
I know the principal.
Oh, you've met with him? That is the former minister,
Just
Alex George, Senior.
Okay.
All right. Okay, go ahead, former minister.
I know. I am so glad, Claudius, that you have Dr. Nurse with you tonight. I must congratulate you because this is perhaps the most fundamental program for the future development of St. Lucia. I am a fan of Dr. Nurse. I have read some of his papers, particularly as you know, he probably knows me because I was in Trinidad at Cardi. I used to be the head of Cardi in Trinidad. And his work for St. Lucia and the Windward Islands in terms of the bananas fights that we had with the powerful fellas, the Americans, and the way in which they treated us with the WTO and all that kind of thing. His work is fundamental and of great import to us He helped us a hell of a lot in terms of the understanding of the dynamics of the international trade with Chiquita and those guys. So I want to openly thank you, Dr. Nurse, for the work that you have done eons ago on our behalf. Now, having said this, Claudius, you'll have to give me a little time, tonight.
Well, not really, because we want to give as many people a chance as possible. So you would have to be brief.
Okay, all right. I have been wanting to see him, and I've been trying to get him, but it's always impossible to go through the phone system at the college. And I want to really have...
Well, I can give him your contacts, and I'm sure Dr. Nurse will get in touch with you.
Okay, I'll be very good.
Yeah, I will do that.
Number one, I want him to have a study of my book on St. Mary's College, because it has linkages with his thoughts about the Arthur's Community College.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, one of the thinking I have is to link St. Mary's College, like what Achimoto College in Ghana was, to a university. So in the new thinking that he has of our university, going to our university, which is one of the charges that he has, he must include St. Mary's College in that particular thing. Okay. And that's why I want him to read my book.
I will certainly give him your contact. He will leave here with your contact.
Right. Now,
okay.
Further, I am very, very pleased of his thoughts, because his thoughts are identical to mine in terms of the way in which the college should feed into the society. One of my greatest disappointments is that the lecturers at the Arthur List do not do enough research on topics that are of direct relevance. And the one that he mentioned, for example, which has great potential in terms of diversification of our economy, is the one of the, the seaweed, the sea moss.
The blue economy.
The blue economy, the sea moss. And the fact that he has put in that food technology thing, the fellows in the sea moss and the people at the Apple List in the science department should be working along with those people in terms of the quality of the products and so on. Now, in terms of my vision for St. Lucia, they said that we missed the boat by Antigua taking the fourth campus of the University of the West Indies. I think it's a blessing in disguise, because the Arthur List Community College should be a unique university. It is, I think we should go into what I call a quality niche university. And he just expounded it on a while ago because of Sir Arthur List. My proposal is that the University of St. Lucia should be renamed Lewis and Walcott, and that we should concentrate on, in the degree programs that he has there, I want him to add two new ones. One on development economics and one on Caribbean literature. These are two major areas that we can give to the world. And Doctor, I am
Guys, no, we got to leave here because we must take some more calls.
Yeah.
But I just got a text from somebody from the college. They'll be reaching out to you to organize the meeting with Dr. Nurse. Okay?
Very good.
All right. Thanks a million.
Good.
You got to leave
Thank you
here.
very much.
Okay. We have some very efficient staff. I got a text that says,
Yeah, man. No.
I will reach out to Mr. George and organize the meeting.
No, man. My staff is on top of this.
Absolutely they are. 4522693 is the number if you want to chat with Dr. Nurse and let us know, or let him know what your thoughts are, or you can let us know what your own thoughts are on what he said. And he spoke about green economy, blue economy, normal economy, the abnormal economy. All of them. It's been fascinating stuff so far. And let us... So 4522693 is the number to call. You were making a point before the call. I'm just trying to remember what is the point you're making. What are your thoughts on him saying that the fourth campus in Antigua was a blessing that we didn't get it, and that the university, in addition to changing the name to Lewis and Walcott, I don't know you need to change the name to bring in the new.
Yeah, well, I didn't work with my court close tonight. I'm a graduate from UWI. I worked there, I cut my teeth there. So I'm a firm supporter of UWI. University of West Indies has made a critical contribution to the region, and it will continue to do so.
And now being ranked among the top universities in the world.
Yeah, all right. What I think our role is to do at this college is to define what our niche is. In the community college model, the approach was premised on a feeder system, which is our role is to train people for 2 years and pass them on to others. In the new university model that we are employing, our goal is to train people up to the bachelor's degree at a minimum, and who knows, in the next few years we could possibly push that up to a master's degree. What that will do is that it will drive some of the changes that the caller was just asking for. The demand for research, for publication, for directly engaging with key stakeholders in certain industries and certain elements of the society. Because we want to drive both economic innovation and transformation as well as social innovation and transformation. And so by upping our game, our contribution to the society also gets increased. So that's the approach. Now you could only do that if you have a higher level of investment. As my grandmother used to say, cheap thing, not good, right? And good thing, not cheap, all right? So you cannot underinvest in tertiary education and expect high returns. The math is off, all right? So it means the investment that is required both by the government and by other stakeholders like the corporate sector, as well as parents and their children, needs to go up. Because what I'm suggesting based on the data, and I'm an evidence-based guy, is that solutions underinvesting, not just the government, the society as a whole in tertiary education. So people opt to send their children abroad, those who can afford to. We want to be able to say to those parents, we can give you a better offer, especially up to the bachelor's degree. So now you only have to pay for the master's degree if your child wants to go abroad. And they can save 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 US dollars. That's foreign exchange that stays in the economy and circulates. And so we're now talking about creating a context where there's such huge demand for the college that people are fighting to get into our bachelor's degrees. And that's what I would want us to see happening, where the demand is so high, it outstrips our supply. But in a digital environment, we can respond to any over-demand by attracting human resources from wherever, capabilities from wherever. So COVID really has, these potential always existed, at least for the last 10 years or more. As you were describing with the distance learning.
Yeah.
All right? So distance learning has now been metamorphosized into digital education. And the technologies are now ripe for the picking. And one of my solution friends who's in Barbados, she says, we have two options. We could either wait to be disrupted, or we could disrupt ourselves. I am opting for the latter. I think at the college, we are opting for the latter. We are disrupting ourselves to transform our possibilities, rather than waiting and being passive and reactive when the change comes and someone takes our lunch away from us. That's the old approach. The old business model is gone. We're adopting the new model, and we have the capacities to do so.
That's quite interesting, quite fascinating. I mean, but I want to go back to something you said earlier, that the staffing at the college, we have 8% you said of doctoral staff, and you would think the mean should be 20. But
well, okay, let me give you some. I can give you some benchmarks. So, University of Guyana, this is about 5 or 6 years ago, when I saw the data and I met with them, they had PhD staffing at the level of 16%.
16.
16. UWI, it's closer to 80%. So, we are at 8%. That's a huge gulf.
Mm-hmm.
How do you fill that gap? Now, some of the growth areas that we are seeing require not just PhDs. It needs people with master's degrees in some of the specialized areas. Mm-hmm. And so we are not trying to compete with UWI. We are going in a different direction. I would say that our benchmark would be more like University of Trinidad and Tobago or UTech in Jamaica and so on. And my bet is that this is where the growth is going to take place. It's not in the legacy universities going forward. Because in a post-COVID environment, the global economy is going to be shifting towards the jobs of the future are more entrepreneurial. The concept of the entrepreneur. So even a person working in your company, whether they're freelance, gig, or fully employed and unionized and so on, is required to be an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And so in this framework, the sort of skills you need are related to our gateway students. Because they are not just coming out with a piece of paper and a certification saying, I've been to tertiary education. They're coming out now saying, well, I have designed a new business process, or I've conceptualized a new product. I've done the proofing, the concept proofing already. That's a different entity than someone who's saying, well, I have studied for 3 years, 4 years, and I have a degree. It's chalk and cheese.
Doc, this is fascinating, but we have reached the time where I must ask you to give us your final thoughts.
Well, it's a pleasure. We are neighbors, and we need to be working in collaboration. So I'll be knocking on HTS's door.
And we'll be welcoming you.
For greater collaboration.
Natalie has the keys to it, don't worry.
I am sure she does.
So don't worry about it. But Doc, thanks a million for being here. I mean, based on the responses I'm getting on my mobile in terms of the WhatsApp messages, people have been wrapped in their attention. They like what they're hearing, and they're looking forward to those changes being made at the college level. I got texts from principals, some teachers, and which were fascinated by what was being said. So thanks a million for being here, and appreciate that. And I wish you success in those ideas that you wish to bring forward, and hope they all mesh together very, very quickly, because you spoke earlier on as bringing on some on stream as recently as September of this year. So good luck with that. Thanks a million.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, folks, that's Dr. Keith Nurse, principal since 2019, November 2019 at the South Louis Community College. So you can see, you've heard him, you make your own judgments. I have made mine. So thanks for those of you who listened, rapt attention. We were only able to take Alex's call tonight, but we appreciate all of you who text or in any other way participated. I want to thank my producer, Kalila, for taking care of business as usual. My executive producer, Varia Befevrier. Our sponsors, we couldn't do it without you. And as usual, before I leave, I have to remind you, follow the protocols. Keep your mask on. Wash your hands. Sanitize as often as possible. Remain at home as much as you can, because there's nothing out there but COVID for you. And observe the curfew. On behalf of all, Claudius Francis saying, have a good night and join me on Friday for another edition of Street Up. Have a good one.